If you're a burnt out dog trainer and you've ever thought about closing your business, going to work for somebody else, or just shutting it down altogether for a couple months at a time, this video is for you. What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. Kevin and Angel here. And yeah, in this video, we're going to be talking about burnout and how that manifests for a lot of different dog trainers and what to do and how to handle it if that's something that you're currently dealing with. So, Angel, without further ado, why don't you kind of pick up where I'm leaving off here and kind of talk to people about like how you've noticed this manifesting for people and just what you've been seeing as of late.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced it for myself, but it's obviously something that I hear a lot about from our clients. I would say it's generally those conversations are generally happening with the same people that I've had conversations with before where they're kind of like on the fence of hiring. Which I think makes sense because like you need to hire in order to kind of get some of this stuff off of your plate. But yeah, I mean, it's understandable when you're running a business on your own and you're handling every department of your business and wearing all these different hats. And at the same time, doing a ton of driving, and no one likes driving to a consultation and hearing a no. So then that gets discouraging. And then you're also trying to take in as many dogs as possible to, continue growing your income. So yeah, I can definitely see and relate to how people get so easily burnt out. But again, these are conversations most often with people that we've talked to before about hiring. But then with that, there comes a lot of fear. So people kind of delay on hiring or just straight up decide, like, I don't want to hire right now, or, I'm too much of a control freak kind of thing. So it's just like a never ending circle.
Right. Yeah. And what's coming to mind for me is that saying, if you can't have your cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is you can't be somebody who's like, I'm burnt out. I never get a moment to myself, but I don't want to hire anybody, or I don't want to make any
Yeah.
changes because that's the only thing that's going to, lead your business to inevitably closing down one point or another because you just can't do it. You can't continue to force yourself to do something that you're not feeling fulfilled and happy to do. And so I
Mhm.
was having a great conversation with one of our clients yesterday, and she lives in a fairly mountainous area of California, and it's about an hour drive to the nearest city. And we were talking about just her business model. I mean, she wanted to get on a call with me to talk about sales, and we talked about all that. But the truth is, like, I don't think the main constraint in her business and the reason that she was feeling like a little bit burnt out was lack of sales. I think the lack of sales were coming from other operational issues. And so we got the opportunity to really go into that. And what I was really explaining to her and what we kind of found after talking is that she was spending so much time doing the things in the business that she never got the opportunity to really focus on growing the business beyond herself. And I've heard people refer to that kind of that phase of business as kind of like the valley of despair, where you are like having success and it's become something that like pays for your bills, and it's some good months but still like some slow months and stuff like that, and you never really get it beyond yourself.
Mhm.
It's just kind of like one of those things where it's constantly like ups and downs. And what I was saying to her is like, listen, we got to get this to a point where you have more free time to focus on the things to continue to move the ball forward in your business. Otherwise, it's always going to require you. Otherwise, it's always going to just be kind of like good month, slow month, good month, slow month, because you have the time while you're slow to fill the calendar and make sales. But as soon as you make all those sales and you're fulfilling the work, then you no longer have the time to do that type of work to continue to keep the calendar filled. And we also got into talking about, payroll and what's a reasonable percentage of payroll to pay. And, just to touch on that real quick, there's so many trainers that I find that are, set out with the best intentions possible. And they're like, I'm going to pay 50 to 60% of the board and train. And what's the big deal? I got to keep 40 to 50% of it for myself. But the problem is, you don't actually get to keep 40 to 50%. And, you have all these other expenses that come along with running the company. And so I guess what I'm really getting at here is like, you need to sit down and think about, what does my dream business look like? How can I make this business as profitable as possible? And that way I can stay around for the long haul and actually grow a business. I had a really, really helpful conversation about a month ago with somebody who's a really successful business owner. And I did a coaching call with them. And he kind of really encouraged me to like have more of an investor mindset when it comes to your own business. And what that means is stop trying to do everything yourself. Stop trying to keep every single penny in it and stuff like that. And, think about it like, what are the things that I can do? How can I allocate the capital that I do have so that I can like leverage really skilled people to do the job so we can actually grow further and further and further? So many of us, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, your goal when you first start the business is just to make enough money to live and pay your bills. But then you start having these more ambitious goals of like hitting numbers like $20,000 a month or $30,000 a month. And it gets to a point where you may be able to do that 1 month, but you're not going to be able to sustain that if you're the one doing it all yourself. And
Mhm.
so, Angel, I know I just gave a lot of information there, but I'd love to hear you kind of like give your thoughts on that. And yeah, just like, what do you overall see with people and like what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I want to give like a different perspective on it, and it might seem a little bit like obviously, this is common sense kind of thing, but I'm saying this because this is a conversation that I have with people often. And so and when I say common sense, what I mean is like when I say it, it seems like, yeah, that's obvious. But at the same time, like when you are the business owner and you're just like so involved in so many different things and like you want to do this, but you also want to do that, but you can't do that because you have this and you don't have time and you're going here and you're going there. So many different things going on. So it's hard to really just like think through everything clearly, especially when you also have like all these different goals. And so when for people who aren't business owners, you know what I mean? You're just an employee, you work for a company, you still like you want to of course work somewhere where you have the opportunity to grow and to earn more. And so with that, obviously you get more responsibility or, they hire people for your position and then you end up going to the next level and so on. And so I think when people start a business, they originally have that mindset, you know what I mean? Where like at the end, like the end goal is for me to maybe step away from training dogs or step away from training dogs as much and have people working for me or just like let the business run itself kind of thing. But then when you're in it and there's so many different things going on, and like the most common thing that I hear is people just like, not wanting to like hand the reins over or just not having time to train people or I'm too much of a control freak, or there's always something, right? But then at the same time, they're like, but how can I grow? How can I get, I want to increase my monthly revenue to this number or that number. Like when you are one person and you can only take on so much, like you also have to think about like how is it physically possible to do any of that. And so again, it sounds like kind of common sense. Like how do you expect to grow if you can only take in so many dogs at a time? You can only drive to so many places in one day. You can only do so many lessons and all that kind of stuff. You can only raise your prices so many times in a year. So there's going to come a point where you're kind of just like capped out and tapped out and you can't really grow much further from there. And one of our clients, I feel like we spoke about him a couple episodes ago where it was kind of the same situation. He felt like his schedule was absolutely maxed out. They still had room for growth, but they were just trying to figure out how. And when I was having that conversation with him, he's like, I can't take any more appointments to do consultations. I can't do any more lessons. And all of that is because his schedule is literally maxed out morning until night every single day. Aside from the weekends, they take off weekends, rightfully so. But yeah, like the schedule is absolutely maxed out. There's no more room in the facility even if, other trainers were to take on like some extra lesson clients or something like that. And so it was like everything was impossible. So then I was like, okay, well, you need to hire someone. And at that point, he was a little bit hesitant about hiring someone, but he ended up doing it. And I think with that hire, I know you and I had a conversation with him yesterday, but I think with that hire, it kind of helped him realize like maybe he needs more help in this other part of his business versus what he actually hired for. So now he's getting ready to make another hire. But yeah, a lot of that stuff, I think it sometimes just takes being able to like sit down with someone to like lay out everything that's going on, talk about all of your goals, and just have someone help you like, think of everything straight and come to kind of like a middle ground, something that's going to help you and kind of make you comfortable with the growth that you're making while also seeing the actual growth.
Right. Yeah. I really think that most people have the ability to think critically and recognize what the bottleneck is in their business. But sometimes it can only happen is when you take like a half hour to like actually think about something. You know, even just like getting outside and going for a walk and thinking to yourself critically for a second, like, I feel burnt out. Okay, why do I feel burnt out? Well, I feel like I have no time, and that's making me feel like I have no control over my life, right? I feel like that's what burnout really is like, I have literally no time to do anything for myself, and I just am like a vessel to like fix other people's problems. And
Mhm.
that's when I notice for myself when like I'm feeling like burnt out. And so it's like, okay, well, what do you spend your time doing? Right. And it's like, well, I spend my time training a lot of dogs, but I'm still having these like ups and downs where like there's not enough dogs coming in. Right. It's like, yeah, well, that's because you don't have the time to really focus on the other side of the business, right? You don't have the time to focus on the sales and the marketing. Or I am all day just answering calls and I don't have, and there's so many calls that are going to waste as well. And, you know, I'm not having enough time to get to the dogs until like late at night and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, you have to make a decision at that point as far as like, what do you want to hire for? But, you know, each of us has the ability to think critically and decide, like, what do I need help with in my business? And so I would encourage you, sit down and think about or go for a walk. That's always very helpful for me. It's just getting out in the sun and walking around for a half hour, an hour, and thinking about what is it, or a walk late at night, you know, after I put our kids to bed and stuff like that. Just think about like, what is it that I need to do in my business?
Mhm.
And the answer miraculously will come to you. Talk to a friend, you know, talk to somebody who's further ahead than you. Hire a coaching, hire a coach, you know, we have these conversations all the times with our clients. But the thing is like, don't stay stuck forever because the businesses that really are or there for the long haul and are around for a long time are the ones who, as you were explaining before with our client, like make a decision and see if it works. And, you know, for that client, he hired somebody and he's like, yeah, it was okay. But I kind of realized after doing it, it wasn't actually the hire that I needed. So I'm going to make a change and I'm going to use the money to hire this next person. And
Mhm.
so what I've learned from business is like, you only learn from doing things. You know, there's a really good chance that the first person you hire will not be with your company for the next 30 years. You'll probably hire them and you'll probably do a shit job training them. And that's coming from somebody who's done that. And you realize afterwards, like, this didn't work out and it kind of fizzled out and I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to be more patient with who I find to hire. I'm going to be more prepared when it comes to training them. I'm going to give them more time to really train them up and stuff like that. But you know, I was just talking to our newest hire this morning, and everything in life comes down to repetitions. It just is a matter of just doing it. But I feel like at least I'll speak for myself here. Like we've kind of gotten away from the topic at hand, which we've been known to do. But the topic at hand is burnout. And the reason that we're talking about hiring is going back to what I was talking about before. It's like you have no freedom. You have no time to do anything in your life other than be a vessel to fix other people's problems. The only way you can fix that is either just like I started out by saying, shut the whole thing down, which you don't want to do, right? You want to have a business. That's why we're all here. So you have to get the business beyond yourself. And I'm telling you right now, there are wonderful people out there. There are people who will make your life so much easier. And by finding those people, it'll allow you to be focused on a couple things. First off, give yourself a little bit of a time to actually have a break, right? Have some free time in your life and also be able to grow the business. And there's nothing more freeing than like when a problem comes up or and somebody else can handle it for you, or somebody else makes a sale for you, or somebody else trains that dog for you, and you get a 5-star review, and you didn't even have to train the dog. And so, if you're feeling burnt out, this is the only inevitable thing that you can do. Because, Angel, like you were saying before, there's things you can optimize. Like you can raise your prices, you can try and squeeze another dog in for a board and train. Maybe some months you do board and trains and you take a break and you focus on doing private lessons. But the thing is, like, you're only going to be able to work within the confines of what you're capable of doing until you grow the business beyond yourself. And so I think that's really the essence of what this always comes down to is, you know, you're feeling burnt out and being like, I just don't have any time because I have to do everything yourself. And it's like, well, yeah, don't do everything yourself, you know, simply put. So I think that the only true way to get away from feeling burnt out is to buy some of your time back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just to touch on something that you said in the beginning, like I think it's incredibly important when you do feel like you're burnt out or maybe nearing that burnout is reflecting. So, like you said, go for a walk, sit down and talk with someone. Do something that is going to help you clear your head. Don't just like in the middle of a training session try to reflect and think through all of this. Like, literally, get away from dogs, get away from work and clients and your phone.
And so regardless if you're looking to hire for a appointment setter, an office administrator, or even a kennel tech, or even a dog trainer, it's always worth putting the feelers out there. So what I always recommend is go to Indeed and go on the platform as if you're searching for a job and put in your city or the main city near you and just type in dog trainer or kennel technician or receptionist or something like that, and see what other companies are posting and what they're offering to pay, because you might be surprised and you think to yourself, you know what, I can afford to have somebody come in 20 hours a week and pay them $15 an hour. I actually can swing that. And so
Mhm.
it's not as crazy as you might think. And then that will free you up to be able to have more time to grow the business more, take on more dogs, do more private lessons and stuff like that, do more consultations. And this person you're hiring even part-time can handle the back end while you focus on that. And then that allows you to bring in more revenue so you can employ them full time. Now there's going to be people who are like, yeah, that's great, but I still can't afford even that. And here's the really hard thing that I think people need to hear is starting a business is hard. And there's going to be things that are just going to be required of you where it's like, it's a really difficult, dark season sometimes where you were just working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I was just talking to one of our clients, Aaliyah, about this. And when she first started her business, was like, I would drive 3 hours to do consultations. I was totally normal. And I just had this high level of confidence that if I was going to go out there, I would make the sale. And I'd rather take the chance on doing that. And if I didn't make the sale, yeah, that kind of sucks, but on to the next one. And so we all have heard people talk about how hard it is to start a business. We have heard so many different, stories of people going through trials and tribulations when they start their company. But for some reason, when it's us, it's like, oh, it should be different. And so think about this when you're like starting the business and you can't afford to hire somebody, you need to just bust your ass a little bit till you can get it to the point where you can afford to hire somebody. And if you're not willing to do that, then it's kind of just where like the road ends, I guess, for you. But I think the good
Mhm.
news is most people are willing to do that, but they just don't know when to actually start delegating. And so that is something that's a really important skill set, is like identifying like, how long can I actually do this for? How long can I hold on to all these roles and responsibilities before I get to a point where I just go, I can't do this and I need to take a month away from it. And so
Mhm.
don't wait for yourself to get there. Again, take it from me, somebody who's done that, where it's like, I'll just do it for another month, another month, another month. And before you know it, you're like, I'm resentful every time my phone rings. I don't want to do another sales call. I don't want to do another consultation. I don't want to do anything other than just be left alone. And it's a really hard place to get yourself out of that hole. So just don't wait for yourself to get there before you start making a change and looking to hire. So with that being said, we're going to wrap things up here for today's episode this week, but I hope you guys got some value out of this. And as always, we appreciate the support and we will see you guys all very soon in the next one. See you guys.